welcome back to my channel. I'm Liam. It's trade talk time on this channel. If you've seen my review, it's been a pretty tough couple of weeks for me in this game. But hopefully there's a few of you out there that are doing much better than me, and I can give you a few handy little tips to move you up the ranks for this week during this tough, and for the future as well. It's a tough week this week with the news of Richmond West Coast. There are less teams on the bye this week, so there's only four teams, which makes this week a little easier. But the worry week is next round. There's 8 teams on the bye, with including the big rucks, Gawn, Grundy, even if he's fit, won't be able to play. Nat Noy's out. Darcy's also out with injury, plus he wouldn't be able to play that round. So you're already left down to you lost one there. Plus plus the defenders with Laird. You got your Highmores, you got your Murphys. They're pretty stacked back there. Plus you got your Olivers, all your Melbourne players, all your Collingwood players. Richmond's fairly popular team with Martin, Shai Bolton, Jaden Short. That's another person in defence. It's going to be a very tough round. Plus, you've got all these donuts on your bench as well. It's going to be hard to fit in a team for next week. So, planning around that, hopefully I could give you some tips for this. The rookies this week, there's a couple on their bubble. There's actually 4 main ones this week. So we'll start off with the top on the list here is Reeves. I feel like it's pretty easy to go Flynn to him this week. Flynn has got with his 51 last week, he's got a fairly high break even. Plus he's not playing number 1 ruck, so his scoring has dropped a bit. So Reeves, Flynn to Reeves is an option I am considering this week. They have the same bye, but Reeves has had his bye, so you got 2 weeks of playing him. He can cover Grundy this week if you've got Grundy on the field, and then he'll be your only ruck next week with both Gawn and Grundy out the next. He did get injured in the last moments of the game last week. I haven't heard any bad news for him, but if he is playing, gets named, he's probably nearly a must-have to bring in this week, just to free up 250k. Plus, there you get, I didn't mention before, you get 2 extra trades, which has become handy. It is a bit annoying that last week that I couldn't prepare for it. I would have probably used the trade last week if I'd got notified a little earlier. But it becomes handy that you've got a couple of free trades to fix up any issues and to help with fixing up the issue for next week. But Reeves is a solid option. A person also coming off their bye, Max Holmes, is also in his bubble. Doesn't have the greatest job security at Geelong. Duncan back next week and Dangerfield in the next couple. I don't feel like if he gets named this week, he's a handy little option, but you want him for the next 2 weeks. If an injury happens at Geelong, I feel like he's that 22nd, 23rd player there. He'll get the 2 games needed, and he has a decent role playing that high half forward to get you 50 to 60, and will help you with the next 2 tough weeks. It's a tough one between him and bring in Coleman Jones, who's averaged nearly 100 in the last two, incredibly low break even, ruck forward, but he does have that bye next week. I believe I have Martin and Bolton in my forward line, so that create three Richmond forwards, which is not overly ideal. I could bring Coleman Jones instead of Reeves, but that means I have no players in that last bye round for rucks. And with the carnage in defence, it might leave me a few players short for that round. It is an incredibly tough one. It all depends on how your structure is going. But Holmes, if he gets named this week, I will probably most likely be bringing him in and just hoping he can hold for the week after. But with 4 trades this week, you can nearly bring in Holmes, Reeves, Coleman Jones, and then the last one I want to talk about, Bianco. I feel like it's a must-have defender mid. He's already in 32% of teams. I think a lot of people brought him in last week, which it's not usually the way you go in SuperCoach, but he's also like Holmes, playing it high half forward and getting a little bit into the midfield. And I do see him averaging about that 70-odd in the coming weeks. I don't think he might be a D6 or just a bench player. So after this week, he doesn't become very useful. He might make a bit of cash that you could use to trade him out as your final upgrade, or just luxury trades at the end of the season. And actually provides great cover as well, being a defender mid, flexibility, can flick with Laird. If you, like me, still have Sharp, you can flick him up and down. Handy little loophole option as well. Again, like the others, has his bye in the last round. And defenders are a bit nightmarish for that round. You could play him in for a midfield this week and fling him into defence the week after. But I feel like you need to bring at least 2 of these 4 in this week. At least double downgrade to fund a upgrade for a player coming off their bye. If I was to order them, I feel like Bianco 1, Reeves 2, Coleman Jones 3, Holmes 4. But if we get news that Dangerfield might not be back for a couple of weeks, or another Geelong injury, Holmes, I feel like, goes ahead of Coleman Jones just. It's just that bye which I'm very frustrated with him having. But he is going to make a truckload of cash and will be handy in a few rounds. Oh, I hate this. It's just, if this is round 2, round 3, Coleman Jones would be 1, and probably Bianco would be 2. And probably wouldn't be worrying about Reeves or Holmes because we'd probably have another R3 going along. But I've probably made more confusion than actually helped this week. Sorry. But yeah, if he's going to be played on your field, F6 for a few weeks after this bye round, Coleman Jones is certainly an option, but a bench option, probably I would sway towards a Holmes. Gives you 2 scores this week. Oh, but then again, he might give you only the score next week, because this week you might have 22 and won't be needing him for this round. It is such a tough call. If you need that 40k to fund an upgrade, though, it is very handy. But with Lynch out for 4 to 6 weeks, Coleman Jones and with key forwards tend to have an inflated scoring and volatility. He might score 30 next week against a good, but West Coast's backline in the mud, I do see him scoring about 120 this week. I feel like nearly this week it's a 4 down. You can nearly go 4 down and then upgrade everyone coming off their bye next week. That is certainly an option. Go Coleman Jones in the forward line, Bianco in defence or mid, Holmes in middle. Yeah, what am I talking about? And Reeves, Flynn to Reeves in the ruck. There are just so many options, permutations as well. But if I'm looking at this week going 3 of them, and it is the toughest decision leaving one of them out. It's not, because Flynn you want to get rid of in the next couple of weeks. I was planning on getting rid of Flynn in 3 weeks, but with ruck options here, and I don't think there's going to be many in the future, it's either I go for a ruck option this week, cover for 2 weeks, or play Flynn, whose job security might not overly be good. Just confuse you all. Another way of looking at it is you could skip Reeves this week, play Flynn for the next 2, and then trade Flynn to a looping donut, like 102k ruck. I think there is one still available. I think it's Sitsi Parlis from Geelong, and you can use him as a captain loop for the rest of the season. So that saved you 20k, because the only thing Reeves will provide you is cover if a Grundy or Gawn is out. And most likely if one of them is out, you'll be looking to probably just flick a sideways trade to a Nat Nui type. So maybe, that's probably where Reeves now becomes probably lower than Coleman Jones as such. If you're wanting to bring in Coleman Jones, forward line will be the only option I would bring him in, though. That's enough rookie talk for now. I've probably confused everyone who's watching this. Probably not many still watching. But let's go to some primos that I'll be looking at targeting this week. My number 1 this week option in defence is Lachie Whitfield. 115 in his last 2. GWS hitting a bit of form, playing North this week, should absolutely rack up. The only thing is, might get a tag from Kane Turner. Knowing North could do anything, but I see him as underpriced. He's about 50, 60k under where he should be. Coming off his bye, with defence in the mud, and look at this. Oh yeah, you've also got Lloyd, you got Mills, you got Ryan, you got Crisp, you got Dawson. Look at the top 7 defenders there, all with the last round bye. It's just going to be a headache for anyone for bringing in the defenders that week. So Whitfield is probably my number 1 option this week. I wouldn't want to target anyone else with the... Oh, and Stewart is another option as well. I prefer Whitfield over Stewart. Just with Whitfield's ability to rack up numbers. Stewart relies a bit on his contested marking, and against better teams tends to struggle just a little bit. But those 2 are options this week. Forward line... there's no one. Dixon's hit a bit of form, but playing Geelong this week. Hawkins, key forward. I tend to not like bringing them in. That's Coleman Jones again. Forward line, I would look to probably target a Bailey Dale probably Bailey Dale off his bye next week is a forward that I would be liking. Side bottoms hit a little bit of form, could be an option, but most teams will probably have filled the forward line. It's not the biggest issue. You want to get 8 premium midfielders before 6 premium forwards, because the volatility in the forward line's been pretty high this year. no real consistent performer. Zorko's been the only one to do that in the last 5 rounds. There's only about 5 of them averaging 100 in the last 5, so that are still playing and not injured. So, yeah, there's no forwards I would look to bring this week. Midfield, Took Miller is extremely tempting this week. Absolutely tempting. As a big pod, I'm looking at bringing him in as I've got nothing to lose at this stage. It's just a lot of point. It's not the amount of touches he gets; he just racks them up. But Gold Coast, with limited amount of good players in your team, scoring tends to be packed right at the top and right at the bottom, and with a few in the middle. Unlike some teams which spread their scoring out a lot, but I see Took Miller going about 125 for the rest of the year with his role. I don't see him getting tagged. He did get a little injury a couple of weeks ago, but I feel like that he's over that. So he's number 1 option this week. Another pod option is Cunnington. He's just a contested ball beast. He's similar to Liberatore. Don't need many possessions to get a monster score. And in the last few weeks, averaging 130. And he's a very underrated player. Being a North supporter, might have a little bit of bias, but in the last few weeks, he's just a gun. Kelly is another one with GWS hitting a bit of form. And Ward. I wouldn't touch Kelly with his. I say every day, his injury history just tends to ruin you in the end. But certainly another player off his bye that very consistent as of late, and Pottish at 8% as well, down 50k in his starting price, and Whitfield backers certainly boosted his scoring. I would go Kelly over Ward. I wouldn't be wanting to target any players in that 500k. I would want a premium status player. And another one is Ollie Wines coming off his bye. A bit like Cunnington, doesn't need many possessions to get a high score. Just hasn't had the history in the past of scoring consistently well for me to be high on his list. You could say the same for Took Miller, but he had a good season last year as well and has hit form again throughout the year. And there's no one else. Hopper's played a few good games, but I would prefer all those guys above him this week. Paris is certainly an option for next week. It was a big miss. But just someone like a Wines, they haven't had the history in the past, but if they get the role, they seem to sometimes repay you and kill people that blame history. But it's just hard. This game's very hard to nail absolutely perfectly. We try our best. I've done really well in the last 5 years, and this year's just 1 year that I've just been off, missed a few decent players, held on players when I shouldn't have. But we learn our lessons, and it's still a fun game to play. And I love helping others do their best. So if that's helping one person or it's helping hundreds of people, it's making me happy as a person, even though I might not be enjoying my weekends overly. I'll be making someone else happy, which is 10 times better. So those are my options for this coming week. Oh, there's also if you did have a Darcy issue, I would nearly. It's an extremely tough decision. Some of you probably came on here just for that. I wouldn't go down to anyone. I'd probably just take the hit, see what his news is. If he's out for more than 3, I would just go straight to probably Nick Nat and just. I know he has that bye in the last round, but pretty much all the other decent rucks. Goldstein, you wouldn't probably want to be bringing him in and then holding him. If you do have stacks of trades, Goldie is an option to if you want to, but he's an option. He's not someone that I would want in my team come season's end. If you want to be a little bit ballsy, could go down to a Reeves, and then up to a Grundy in the coming weeks if you did trade Grundy. But yeah, I don't think I was 2.1% owned, so probably not overly a big issue for many people. So till Thursday, where I'll give my captain tips, my trades, see what I end up going to be doing. It's just a tough week. It's just tough because I don't want to miss out on a good rookie. But then again, cash prices rise become a little bit more useless as seasons go, as the time goes on. I've just blabbered that last whole minute. Sorry about that. But hope everyone has a good week, and I'll catch you Thursday for that preview of round 13.